Here we go. There, welcome to Talk Frost News Vlogs. Today we're doing another one. We're in 2026 as of now. It is January 24th, 2:26 p.m. Eastern Time. I can say that because everybody already knows I'm Floridian. I've said it numerous times. But we're going to talk about Nvidia today. No. Nvidia. Big giant in the scene. Big giant in the scene. Getting hated more by the day as passes. We decided to talk about Jensen Huang today, but Jensen Huang isn't everybody at Nvidia. There's some good people at Nvidia that have some really good uses to what Nvidia could be provided for in the future as AI further develops over time, as we get more crazier results from AI. Now, that doesn't mean that they comes without any errors or mistakes or things that are quite shady. I saw some really quite shady things that Nvidia's been doing, but that's not all of Nvidia. There are certain parts to Nvidia that make me first question its environmental impacts on this ecosystem that it's been building around itself of, because now Nvidia has been trying to put down its emissions. It's trying, and it did hit net zero for scope 1 and scope 2 around certain parts, but there is a part that is not hitting right with me, is scope 3. Now, this stuff is fully public. You can find this data online. Now, because there's this really cool feature I have on this PC, I'm going to use a hotkey and transition to the other window so that we can look at the actual sites I've been looking into and the sources I've been looking into, because there's a lot of hearsay on Nvidia that I don't think is true, because now information is getting harder to decipher if it's true or not. I had to look into facts into this to see if what I found was true, and some of it can be biased. So I'll disclaimer, I'm not a legal expert on this. I don't have financial advice, and I don't have financial legal powers or authority to tell you what to do with your money. Nvidia is being invested heavily on the AI industry, and it is a really large giant. It's not getting questioned far enough, because we should put Nvidia to the same standards we do with Google. And Nvidia happens to be one of the more less carbon emission giants in the scene. They're emitting very low emissions compared to most companies, yet it's still emitting carbon because of a few things. We're gonna get into that. So this one cool thing I can do with my PC is I can do this. I can click a key and then I can go back to this screen, and oh my goodness, this is like beautiful. It's amazing. I've learned how to switch windows and screens. We had to look into a lot of information, right? I know about the monopoly practices that Nvidia's been doing. You can look into that. Some of it could be debunked, but we did have the very infamous, Nvidia stream where somebody used the deepfake of, Jensen Huang himself, to promote a crypto, coin and thing and all this, and it did work on a bunch of really stupid investors, which the investors were, if you want to know, they're normal average people who don't know how AI works. They fell for this scam, which, by the way, used Nvidia's very own AI to do a crypto mass adoption event stream where it hit over 100,000 viewers. Now, this is totally unrelated, and I haven't even got into the monopolization, the hijacking of official events, the carbon emissions, the violations of Securities Exchange Act of 1934, which, yes, Nvidia did pay $5.5 million back in 2022 for penalty charges that it failed to disclose the significant impact of cryptocurrency mining on its gaming business revenue growth during fiscal year 2018. This obviously is not too large, but they didn't lose a legal battle right here, right? The SEC, U.S. Securities Exchange Commission, did report this back in 2022. But that's just the past, right? It's the past, right? We're gonna continue to do this, right? They still violated the Securities Exchange Act of 1934, because then we haven't even gone into Palantir, right? And I did look into the tax evasion history, and they haven't done or have done any severe tax evasions, right? They haven't been doing that. They've been doing grants and IDDTs, and I know this thing is a very complicated financial term. It's a kind of complicated, convoluted area of finances that I don't have a profession in. If somebody can explain to me, I would love to, because this is like, I entered the new territories once I got into this, because Jensen Huang hasn't been doing any avoiding the taxes. I think he's paying the taxes, but he's doing it with different intentions, because then we have to look into Nvidia's damage to the government environment. let me not say government, right? Nvidia is definitely sucking up to Donald Trump, but who cares, right? Right? It's just a business relation thing, right? So they did break the environmental regulations that they set for themselves, right? They put down years back saying, hey, yes, we are doing emissions and we will stop this emission issue. Let's do that, right? And Nvidia was like, yeah, we're going to do it. And suddenly, no, it didn't follow. It didn't follow. They weren't able to catch up. I looked into this article, but then I also noticed how it's heavily based on passing an agenda. This has zero comments and is a really foreign indie, it's an indie news report that I saw, which is international. This is Greenpeace. I looked into this, in relations to their emissions, but I couldn't trust it enough. So I looked into Yahoo's finance page, and I looked into this, and I looked into how they talked about the environment, a chip market, electricity use, and they happen to credit Greenpeace over here from Greenpeace East Asia, which is ironic because I wasn't trusting of this, and then Yahoo suddenly uses this source. But then I was like, okay, I don't fully trust this. I could be really making up information. And then I had to look into Greenpeace's reliability, and it seems that they do have politicized agendas, which is what makes me go, okay, no, it's not informationally but like neutral, as much neutral as possible. So I had to look into, okay, is Nvidia taking action on their emissions, but they are still behind scope 3 results? Yes, it seems that they are significantly behind their tons of, how much tons of carbon emissions that they've been producing, right? They're on the lower spectrum, but they're still doing emissions. So they did happen to make a goal for themselves, right? Back then in the day, in 2022, 2023, and they failed to hit it in 2025. And the largest contributors are from Scope 3 emissions, which are from purchased goods and services. According to the FY 2025 report, it says that the surge in emissions is largely driven by the explosive demand for AI chips and resulting increased manufacturing volume, which creates a significant sustainability gap as production scales up faster than the decarbonization efforts. If anybody still doesn't believe me on it, I went to this site called Transable, and it showed me public data, right? Public data, ESG data based on Nvidia's, emissions, GHG emissions, and climate targets, and EU taxonomy, and this, and these are measured in metric tons, right? We're talking this, right? This is all collocated data, but basically what it's saying is that from the tons of carbon emissions that they've been producing per metric or something in metric square, Nvidia has certainly hit zero on their scope 2 in certain areas for the market-based emissions, but then they still have trouble on target 1, and it's higher than compared to 2023. And there's more on this stuff from previous, but right now we're focusing on 2023 and then past 2023. Their total scope on number 3 still hasn't changed, right? And these 8 categories are in relation to their purchased goods, which is very conflicting, which is causing most of all of these issues. Then we have capital goods, fuel, energy related services, upstream transportation distribution. Basically emissions that are not exactly coming from their data centers. These are not emissions from their data centers completely. This is from things outside that use, right? These are like external emissions caused by their work, and you can look at these graphs telling you all about it. It breaks it down. And if anybody ever asks me if I understand fully what it's talking about, I won't say I'm a chemist. So disclaimer, I'm not a fully licensed chemist professor, all right? I know what carbon dioxide is, and I know what carbon emissions are. I know this is measurement, as in this right here says tons, this here says carbon dioxide science talk. But basically what it's saying is that they have tried to avoid emissions, but their scope 3 emissions aren't following. And then I looked into them compared to their industry peers, basically the emissions compared to their friends, so that people will get scared when they see data, because people have this is somebody who recently challenged me to look into the scientific way of how I criticize things, especially AI, because AI is a computer science. I'm not going to be stupid and assume it's just slob. AI is not all slob. That's just the majority of use in the consumer market at the current service level now. If we do get into the rabbit hole, we're going to get down into science. At some point, you're going to go into computer science. And I don't have a profession in computer science, but I do know what it's doing with the environment. What it's doing with the environment is bad. But compared to its friends, their friend AI companies that it is friends with, it is quite low on the spectrum, but still comparably bad for the environment. It still does damage. So the data centers weren't my issue. But then I looked into this, and just, in case anybody wants to know what this is, that is what it means. It looks really scary, but it's not really scary. If you until you get into this, it's not scary, right? That's in case, just put that there, just in case anybody wants to know what I'm talking about. Yes, Palantir and Nvidia have a partnership. Yes, they do. And this is in relation to surveillance. Everybody who's watched the channel for a very long time know how I am with surveillance. Anybody who watched this channel for the past year, it's about to be over a year, but once we get to August, basically I've covered this for around a year and a half, I guess, once we get to August, because I did cover it quite late. I should have probably talked more about it back in 2023, but I think I was very naive. I admit I was quite naive to immediately assume that AI would be such a great thing, until I was like, okay, I'm gonna suck up how wrong I was. I'm wrong. I did say that. In the video, I did say I was wrong for my previous naive assumptions about the use of AI, because I thought it would be super grateful for album covers until I saw the legal lawsuits. But we're back into this. Palantir is one of the surveillance companies that are one of my largest enemies. And I've covered Palantir, but I don't think I did it enough, because I did send links in documents to cadets about Palantir and their surveillance, right? Because I did look into their ontology framework, and I had to look up more factual sources about their ontology framework. If anybody wants a simplification of what an ontology framework is that Palantir is using, there's information based on their ontology framework, which is basically something that helps their corporate AI systems to work properly and function properly, to asset and to organize data together, right? So that their business runs smoothly. They have AI agents and AI services, necessary for learning language models and AI agents. Like it already covers it right here. You could read into this. Basically, to simplify it down for people who are not educated, it is a tool factory, and it basically says that, hey, robots can operate by themselves if we have this framework that tells them directions, so that they operate the correct way. That's the dumbification of what that is, right? And if anyone wants to look into the ontology managers around Palantir, Palantir basically said, we want to suck up all of the data, personal data on people, and then use it against them or use it for our businesses, so that we know exactly what to do based on algorithms that tell us, hey, this is what they're going to do next. We can predict it ahead of time. And this is an entire rabbit hole in of itself. But Palantir's ontology system is in fact controversial. It is not controversial because somebody like me said some hearsay about it, because I hate it with no factual information. There are downfalls to allowing such a system go rampant with its database, saying that we can absorb anything that we lawfully have permission to own. Okay, what I basically mean by that, to dumb it down for people who are not educated, is that they basically, like, for example, a old man with $1 billion out in the street says, give me your personal information, but I'm gonna lawfully gather your information so that I can trace your parents' information and use it for my business and my company. And I want to put this in an AI system and let the AI system analyze it, so I can understand your purchase behavior better, right? Your purchase behavior, like what you purchase online. Like, hey, I bought a beach application, I bought sunscreen, I bought trees, I went out to get a Christmas tree and ornaments. That's purchase behavior. Your behavior in AI would then analyze your data from yourself and your parents legally, seemingly under their precedent, and then use that to basically predict where you go next, what you purchase next in the next month, the next day, where you will possibly go next when you go outside in your car and you drive to the Walmart closest to you. So the dangers of that is that it would be helpful for businesses, but then Palantir would then have such a powerful surveillance market scheme going on where they can track everywhere you go. And Palantir has been known to not respect human rights, especially Peter Thiel, which I should have covered much more on this channel. Peter Thiel is an evil man. Let me tell you. He funds war drones, and he doesn't want to work with Russia or China, but he certainly likes to help himself. He is a billionaire, and he has certainly started up multiple entrepreneur campaigns with his tech finance bros that he is repeatedly over time supported, until they, hit riches, right? So this man supports lots of war technology, and he doesn't like human rights. So don't confuse this as it's a good sales pitch for anything, right? This is another scheme of give me your data and we'll watch everything you do. Why is this problematic? Because in the future, say he wants to weaponize this data against immigrants. And guess what? What a coincidence. He now works with ICE. This man is now using this thing called Immigration OS so that he later, uses that data from immigrants, right? Or people assumed to be immigrants. He's asking ICE for data and Donald Trump to basically say, hey guys, if we can talk to Donald Trump, can Donald Trump allow me to gather data so that we know who's citizen and who's not? And because Palantir already steals data from people for surveillance purposes, they can use that data to then use AIs and cameras and services to scam people across the entirety of the United States. Meaning he can spy on you from anywhere you go. If you're considered an immigrant, a system will tell ICE, hey, there's an immigrant around 244 feet away. The immigrant looks like this, and it will show them an image of the immigrant or alleged immigrant that the system believes to be an immigrant that came illegally to the United States. The thing is that because of how Donald Trump's ICE is how it operates, how it does this thing is what it does is wrong. I'm gonna make sure I also change screen because my game's gonna think I do this. Okay, give me a sec. There we go. Because of how ICE operates, I'm afraid it won't be long before Donald Trump, Palantir, and ICE suddenly say, hey, anybody who refuses to listen to Donald Trump will be prosecuted. That is my issue. Because Palantir is that evil. Donald Trump is that cruel. And with this system, that Nvidia, since Nvidia works with Palantir, fixated on Palantir, they are in violation of numerous things and principles about human rights. And this system, the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, it isn't long before they got radicalized. Because now they got radicalized, right? Everybody knows they got radicalized because of Donald Trump's administration. It goes further than just Nvidia polluting, the environment. They also, the people that they work with are troubling. Even though I'm very using one of their Nvidia GPUs on my PC, I know very well that the amount of emissions caused by stronger GPUs out there that their data centers are causing. But the most of the emissions causing, is getting caused by their external factors around Nvidia's works to better technology with AI. If anybody needs to hear it from me, I didn't say AI was all bad. I said that the way that they utilized it and the people behind it are the ones who are horrible people, right? Jensen Huang he's not innocent, right? This man at least has done something, right? That was pretty great for humanity, and then he started saying, you know what, I don't care, right? He didn't care for humanity anymore. Palantir is way more cruel. Jensen Huang has morality. He has morality compared to most CEOs in the tech bro industry. But compared to Palantir, his friend is Palantir. That is Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel runs Palantir. He still has control over Palantir. Same for TikTok, which was just recently bought by numerous American investors that took hold of shares on TikTok. This is something I looked into, right? Which, by the way, Paramount is owning TikTok. They own TikTok. They now, along with different investors, a bunch of propaganda businesses, which are infamously known for their propaganda and their radicalization of information, now own TikTok. So now TikTok will ask you of your private information, your government information, your ID, your face, and other things. TikTok now, and remember that TikTok is now not even partially owned by a Chinese company anymore. They sold it off, and Donald Trump now basically has Paramount, basically heavyweighting the entire operation, saying, hey, let's use TikTok for a propaganda platform. So now not even TikTok is like untouchable, right? It's now going to be affected by American politics in relation to the right wing dilemma. I've repeatedly have warned people about the mistakes that are caused by Nvidia, because Nvidia is humongous. And just imagine all of the missions that Google and all these other companies are doing when they build their data centers, which are more recklessly built compared to Nvidia data centers, which are internal and more personal emissions, right? That have been recorded to show less in a different angle. Look, if anybody wants to hear my take on Nvidia, Jensen Huang is only a minor problem. My issue is anybody who tries to take control of Nvidia. My issue is their ties to China, right? Nvidia is sucking up not only Donald Trump but also China. But then, and Jensen Huang has repeatedly before previously criticized Donald Trump for, and Joe Biden as well, by the way, so y'all know, for not trying to do better with AI, because China is way ahead of their game. They're way ahead of their game. They're like, this is the issue here, right? China is using AI for different reasons, and China, if you know, is a much more authoritarian country. And the government, the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, isn't helping this at all, and they want to invade Taiwan. Guess what? Nvidia relies on for chips most of the time. Taiwan. If anybody wants to see that, Taiwan produces most chips on Nvidia. For Nvidia. I can show this. I've shown this before on my channel, but I don't think I did it properly. In Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, TSMC, which everybody should know about, produces nearly all of Nvidia's advanced AI and graphics chips. Remember that Nvidia used to be a gaming company. Now they're, an everything company, supercomputer company, with estimations indicating that over 90% of advanced chips designed by firms like Nvidia are manufactured in Taiwan. This deep partnership makes TSMC essential for Nvidia's production of H100 and subsequent AI chips. Nvidia wants to suck up to China so that if China were ever to invade Taiwan, Nvidia would not be touched. You get what I'm saying? We're working with. He is with the all one is China, right? The one China policy, which everybody knows about, which I hope you do. Because in this video, I'm not gonna try to baby it, right? I dumbified a few things. Now I don't have to dumb anything, right? Because they have a dominance, right? Located in Taiwan, TMC is the world's largest dedicated contract chip maker, holding a dominant share of high-end GPU production, because they don't only do it for Nvidia, they do it for other companies. And I know there are other producers around. And Nvidia definitely has said that they don't want Taiwan to only be the main focus. But right now, they haven't taken their statement seriously about Taiwan being the very conflict of interest, right? They haven't taken it seriously, because they did say they don't want Taiwan to be the main focus, right? Because if Taiwan is the only place that majorly, makes chips, that's a conflict of interest. Because if China were to invade Taiwan, what would China do with the chips? They would monopolize them, take control. The really, why this is concerning is because Taiwan, the United States depends on Taiwan for chips as well. We are severely lacking in competence in the military for the United States, because Donald Trump fired all their best generals, right? So I don't even see Donald Trump sending troops, right, over to China to compete with China fairly. I see a disastrous war incoming over chips, because not only do we have the conflict in the United States around the killing of ICE ICE, killing U.S. citizens. We have this issue, the chips for gaming computers and supercomputers. I think that's all I had to say for this one, right? So Jensen Huang certainly has done what he can to to make sense of the taxes and the use of it, right, and the environment, and said things about saying keeping things in control and keeping things fair and all that. He's still monopolizing the market. He is sucking up to China. He believes in the one China policy, and there are reports of him not meeting the quota on his emissions externally, right? His data centers were solved, but not externally. They were not doing a thing. And so supposedly, even from this, though Nvidia is doing lots of great for the industry, which I do see is that they're doing great. The data shows from here, from all the sources that I checked, is that Nvidia has certainly done what they could to follow their quota, but not have actually achieved that. Because we're in 2026, I'm gonna see if they are able to fix this back in 2026, as 26, once we finally finish 2026, so their quota is not the same, right? We have to make sure that this hits zero, but unfortunately, from what it looks, it doubled. Their emissions double, right? That is an issue. And I showed you all info on Palantir. I showed you the conflicts of interest, Taiwan, China, United States, competency, emissions quota, numbers, and carbon dioxide emissions. I told you about the surveillance. I told you about the conflict of interest with the friends that they have in industry. And I told you this so long ago, right? They are leaving all of the problems to the people who are not even at the top of the board. Nvidia still holds a monopoly in the AI industry, and they're not letting competitors fairly compete, because I did look into how they try to intentionally push people from properly competing in the industry. They force gamers and people and others to supposedly pay more for their services. And they also work with Nvidia, right? They work with Palantir, that basically steals data from people, right? They're not only trying to forcibly put themselves in the education for children that I know very about. They are in conflict of interest with their friends and alliances with people who only want surveillance for the world. The worst of the kinds of people in the world are friends with Jensen Huang. That is my problem. The man is two-faced, right? He will do good in this part. The man will do good in his part, and then he will do bad in this other part. My purpose and my reasoning comes from that this is all much more nuanced than it is, rather than me just saying I hate something, right? I've explicitly told people who said Nvidia is doing a great thing, right? Who said that to me in my face. I'm like, they're doing good and they're also doing bad. You can do some of the best things for humanity, and you can also do some of the worst. And what they're doing is, I'm saying is that they're incompetent. They're not following up on their promises, and they're not following up with taking action against monopolizing or oligarchic figures in society and in the system. So with this, I hope this is enough information, and I hope I told you, if anybody ever asks me if I trust Greenpeace, I do not trust this source of information, right? They have an agenda. I checked into Yahoo Finance, and I did look into many more sources than this, because I had to literally make sure whatever I found online was, reported with data, right? So this is probably the first video on my channel to officially say, okay, something about Nvidia officially, right? Nvidia officially. So this is my simplified answer for what I think about Nvidia. Nvidia is doing lots of great things, but also on the other end, doing some of the worst, and is friends with some of the worst humans in human history. They are doing great, but they are also doing another thing on the side. For example, Mr. Beast's philanthropy efforts, as an example, is he can do all of this great good for blind people, deaf people, and all these things he did videos for. But he can also do really scummy things, like the things he did with crypto mining and cryptocurrency scams that he's been involved in, which he is doing that. He's involved with crypto, but he is still healing people from around the world, because he does say that the governments are supposed to be doing that, not a bunch of rich YouTubers helping solve people's deafness and cancers, right? It can't be a YouTuber doing that, but he's also involved in crypto, in the crypto wallet scheme, and he's involved with virtual gambling. So Mr. Beast can be good and bad at the same time. We're humans. I have done things which were horrible. Yes, but I've also done things that were great. Doesn't make me immune to like criticism. Jensen Wong should be criticized just as I get criticized. Mr. Beast should be criticized just as I get criticized. So from this on out, I hope this video calms the nerves of some of the AI stands and my own brother who will be watching this video because he's been waiting for this Nvidia video because I did my research. This time, I hope you now take it more seriously as that I'm not here about hearsay and hitting something for no reason. I have a reason for not liking something, but it doesn't mean I hate it entirely. I'll say it again. Jensen Huang is not all of Nvidia. Jensen Huang is just the face of Nvidia. He's not all the other people below his cabinet, right, that are doing all the horrible things. He's just the face. He's doing his part, but the rest of Nvidia are the people that are employees that work at Nvidia that do this research. They're also real human beings. Hating Nvidia as a whole is not the right thing. You need to criticize Jensen Huang, not the people who work at Nvidia. Go for the ones actually causing the trouble. Just as we're for some reason attacking experts out in the world right now, we're attacking experts literally for fact-checking people. So don't go for them. They are not the issue. The issue is that we should rip them apprehend, right? People who are the actual problems. Anyways, stay safe out there. Protest peacefully. Know your rights. And for the ICE agents who killed the second U.S. citizen just recently, as of hours ago, a second United States citizen has died underneath the arms of an ICE agent. So, in a world where facts are considered now a form of harassment, make it iconic. GBLAE, stay safe, share kindness and love. Don't be violent, right? Don't repeat the mistakes in the past. If Martin Luther King can do it peacefully, you can as well. Rest in peace, Martin Luther King. I did forget to say that. And may we not go into war from the very problem that it was caused in 2026. 2026 is going to be really rough, just like 2025 is. All I can say is this. I'm going to soon make a video about what you can do to avoid surveillance and censorship, because at the moment, it's really bad. It's getting really ugly out there. The world's not a really beautiful place at the moment, so don't panic. I will have a video soon on that. That's all I have to say. Stay safe.